Hoshea, a name that might not be familiar to many. Do you know that name? Hoshea was not just any king. He was the last king of Israel, a figure shrouded in both mystery and tragedy. He wasn't a king from a faraway land, someone you'd read about in fairy tales. He was a real person, a ruler who faced immense challenges. Hoshea was the last king of Israel, a real person who ruled over God's people during a tumultuous time. His reign was marked by political intrigue, betrayal, and the looming threat of foreign invasion. But his reign marked a time of great sorrow and turmoil. The kingdom was in disarray and the people were divided. The Assyrian Empire was growing stronger and Israel was caught in the crossfire. You see, Israel, the nation chosen by God, had strayed far from his love. They had forgotten the covenant they made with him and turned to other gods. They had turned their backs on the very one who had called them out of slavery, who had protected them and blessed them abundantly. The stories of their ancestors, who had been led out of Egypt and through the desert, seemed like distant memories. Instead of following God's laws, they chased after idols, foreign gods who demanded their worship. These idols, made of stone and wood, could not offer the protection and blessings that the true God had provided. Their hearts, once filled with gratitude for God's blessings, had grown cold and distant. The people of Israel were lost, and their king, Hoshea, was unable to bring them back to the path of righteousness. His story serves as a poignant reminder of the consequences of turning away from divine guidance. Imagine being caught in a tug-of-war, pulled between two powerful forces. That was Israel's reality. Assyria, a mighty empire, loomed large, its shadow casting fear across the land. Desperate to break free from Assyrian control, Hoshea turned to Egypt for help, but Egypt's promises of support proved empty, leaving Israel vulnerable and alone. Their alliances were shifting sand, crumbling beneath them. They had forgotten the most important truth. True security came not from military might or political maneuvering, but from placing their trust in God alone. How did it come to this? How did God's chosen people, the recipients of his boundless love and grace, end up so far from him? The answer is a painful one, a slow and steady descent into disobedience. It didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process, like a tiny crack in the wall that widens over time until the whole structure crumbles. Generation after generation had chipped away at their faithfulness to God. They allowed the allure of worldly things to dim their love for him. They embraced the customs of their pagan neighbors, their hearts hardening against God's pleas to return to him. Imagine the frustration, the heartache of a parent watching their child make destructive choices despite their best efforts to guide them. That's how God must have felt as he sent prophet after prophet to warn Israel, to call them back to himself. These prophets were like watchmen on the wall, sounding the alarm, pleading with the people to turn back to God before it was too late. But their words fell on deaf ears. The Israelites ignored the warnings, dismissing them as the ramblings of madmen. They refused to acknowledge the consequences of their actions, clinging stubbornly to their sinful ways. Section 5. Turning away from God. The Israelites' sin wasn't just about breaking rules or disobeying commands. It was a profound betrayal, a turning away from the very essence of their faith and identity. They had been chosen, set apart to be a light to the nations, yet they chose darkness over light. It was about something far deeper, a fundamental shift in their hearts. Their hearts, once filled with devotion and love for their Creator, had grown cold and distant. They no longer sought the face of God, but instead they sought after the fleeting pleasures and false promises of the world around them. They had turned away from the one who loved them most, choosing to chase after empty idols that could never satisfy their deepest longings. These idols, made of wood and stone, had no power to save, no ability to love, and yet the Israelites poured their hearts and souls into worshipping them. They built altars to these false gods, offering sacrifices that were an abomination to the Lord. These sacrifices, meant to bring them closer to their gods, only served to drive them further away from the true God who had delivered them from bondage and led them to the promised land. They embraced pagan rituals, their hearts growing colder and harder with each passing day. These rituals, filled with darkness and deception, replaced the pure and holy worship that God had ordained. The Israelites, once a people of hope and promise, became ensnared in the lies and deceit of paganism. Their worship, once directed solely to the one true God, became a twisted, distorted thing. What was once a beautiful expression of love and devotion became a mockery, a hollow shell of what it was meant to be. The Israelites had lost their way, their worship tainted by the very idols they had embraced. They had traded the pure gold of God's love for the worthless trinkets of idolatry. These trinkets, though they glittered and shone, held no real value. They were mere distractions, pulling the Israelites further away from the true treasure that was their relationship with God. In their pursuit of these empty promises, they lost sight of the eternal riches that were theirs in the Lord. Section 6, the crushing weight of sin. Sin is like a heavyweight dragging us down, separating us from God's love and grace. The Israelites, burdened by their disobedience, felt this weight more and more each day. Their land, once flowing with milk and honey, suffered from drought and famine. Their enemies, emboldened by their weakness, encroached upon their borders. Peace and prosperity, once hallmarks of their nation, seemed like distant memories. Section 7. Exile. The price of disobedience. The inevitable consequence of Israel's sin was a bitter pill to swallow: exile. The mighty Assyrian army swept through the land, conquering cities, destroying villages, and taking the Israelites captive. Their beloved city of Samaria, once a symbol of their strength, lay in ruins. Their exile wasn't merely a physical displacement, it was a profound spiritual separation from God and all that He represented. The Israelites were scattered among foreign nations, their identity as God's chosen people seemingly lost. Section 8. Echoes of ancient warnings. Though these events transpired centuries ago, their message still resonates with a profound urgency today. We too live in a world filled with idols, with temptations that can easily distract us from our relationship with God. We may not struggle with the same specific sins as the Israelites, but the human heart, with its capacity for both great love and terrible betrayal, remains unchanged. We are constantly bombarded with messages that tell us to find fulfillment in material possessions, in fleeting pleasures, in the pursuit of power or fame. Section 9. Choosing faith today. The story of Hoshea and the fall of Israel serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of disobedience and the importance of remaining faithful to God. In the ancient world, the people of Israel faced numerous challenges and temptations that led them astray. Despite the warnings from prophets and the clear signs of impending doom, they continued to follow their own desires, turning away from the covenant they had with God. This historical account is not just a tale of the past, but a lesson for us today. It urges us to reflect on our own lives and the choices we make daily. It's a call to examine our own hearts, to identify the idols we may be clinging to, and to turn back to the one who offers us true hope and lasting peace. In our modern world, idols may not be golden statues or ancient deities, but they can be anything that takes precedence over our relationship with God. It could be our careers, our possessions, or even our own ambitions. By taking a moment to reflect and remove these masks, we can see clearly the path that leads to spiritual fulfillment and peace. This journey of self-reflection is crucial in understanding where our true priorities lie. We have a choice to make: to follow in the footsteps of those who turned away from God, or to embrace the path of faith, trusting in His love and guidance no matter the circumstances. Life often presents us with crossroads, moments where we must decide which direction to take. These decisions can shape our destiny and define our spiritual journey. By choosing the path of faith, we are not promised an easy road, but we are assured of God's presence and support. This path requires courage, trust, and a deep commitment to follow His teachings. Let us choose wisely, for our eternal destiny hangs in the balance. The decisions we make today have far-reaching consequences, not just for our lives, but for our eternal souls. Prayer, reflection, and a sincere heart can guide us in making the right choices. As we stand at the crossroads of life, let us remember the lessons from the past and the promises of the future. By embracing faith and trusting in God's plan, we can find true peace and fulfillment, knowing that our journey is guided by His loving hand.